Are you on edge? We live in challenging, edgy times, so let's lean in. I'm Sandra Bargman, the host of the Edge of Everyday podcast, which drops bi-monthly on all your favorite podcast platforms. Tune in live with me and my friends and colleagues as we share stories and tough talk about pushing boundaries and exploring our rough edges. Real talk with real people that sparks provocative invitations to leap out of what's safe. Sandra Bargman, on the edge of every day. Thanks for listening.
Pressing down on you, no man has fall under pressure.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sandra Bargman, and welcome to the Edge of Everyday, streaming on your favorite podcast platforms and at maximizeyou.life. Are you a change maker? Do you walk between worlds, between cultures, between systems? If you answered yes to any of these questions, the Edge of Everyday is the place for you. In a nutshell, this podcast is about pushing boundaries and exploring rough edges. Through conversations and shared stories with friends and colleagues, it's my hope that we can begin to understand our edges. And what I mean by edges is those places where we are fearful, those places where we are resistant to change, those places where paradox and contradicting identities live in our beliefs and in our understandings, both individually and collectively. We live in edgy, challenging times. We cannot keep looking away from the ugly, from the difficult, and silence is no longer an option. Life isn't black or white, it's both, and I want to talk about that. I want to face the tension of paradox, and I want to engage in the hard conversations. I want to explore the rough edges between our light-filled brilliance and our dark, shadowy corners. Because the more we recognize our own edges, get real about them, the more we can help others to do the same. And that, I fully believe, can help to change the world. So, thanks again for tuning in. Today is April 15th. Yes, Income Tax Day here in the US, but it's also my birthday. Happy birthday to me. Yes, it's my birthday falling on Income Tax Day, as my mother used to tell me. I was a very good return. As you can tell, I like to make a big deal out of my birthday. I have this really fantastic, fun ritual that I do every year on my birthday. I try something new, something really physical, something that I've never done before. For example, one year I ziplined. One year I did hot yoga. One year I went pole dancing. Yes. One year I attended a sweat lodge. And this year, I'm going rock climbing at a gym right here in Harlem. Yes. I love this ritual, and my loyal listeners know how much I adore ritual. I love this ritual for so many reasons, but mostly because it reminds me to keep thinking outside of the box and to let go of where I may be tried and true. It's an act that really symbolizes, for me, starting this next year of my life with boldness and an embrace of change. And that is what being on the edge of every day is all about. Today, we are live in the hive with our special guest, actor, singer, podcast host, psychotherapist, multi-hyphenate extraordinaire, and master storyteller, Susan Lambert. I met Susan on social media. She reached out to me about my podcast and shared with me that she had hosted a podcast called In the Balance for a few years, which was somewhat similar to mine in our exploration of liminal space. Needless to say, with those two words, liminal space, I was hooked and I reached right back. I love being in a liminal space. It's why I adore ritual. And I know it's why I boldly embrace change, or at least try to most of the time. It's why I call myself an edge walker. The term liminal comes from the Latin root limen, meaning threshold or sill. and represents a time and space where we stand between two worlds or ways of seeing. To be in liminal space is to be in a time where one way of being is breaking down, and yet a new way is not yet taken form. It can be a time of great ambiguity and disorientation, and yet one can remain spacious while in this place and not try to rush out of it prematurely. It can offer great transformation and rich growth that can be brought forth into the next stage. I do recognize that living in a liminal space can be excruciating for some people, culturally, politically, spiritually. For instance, liminal space can also refer to the positionality Native people experience as they occupy both a Western social location and identity and Indigenous social location and identity. However, that conversation will be for another episode. Today, we celebrate. We celebrate my birthday, this new friendship. We celebrate the edge between, the threshold, the liminal space where mystery, paradox, and transformation reside. So, without further ado, it's time to introduce our guest. Susan Lambert is a multi-passionate person. She is a clinical social worker and a psychotherapist and has maintained a practice with both individuals and groups for 27 years. She works with clients struggling with depression, anxiety, trauma, and relationship issues. Susan is a versatile actress who has appeared in leading roles, character roles, and roles written specifically for her in musicals, dramas, and comedies in New York City and across the United States in regional, stock, and off-Broadway productions. She was the podcast host of In the Balance at inthebalance.life for 4 years with 142 archived episodes where she speaks with leaders, experts, and peers from diverse walks of life. She published, now how could that be? I have my phone on off. How can that be? Where she published, produced, and narrated the audiobook, The Wild Edge of the Heart. Oh, I love that. In which she the poetry of 12 award-winning contemporary women poets with original music composed by Kim Sherman. The audiobook features a foreword by iconic theater artist and writer Anne Bogart. And all proceeds from the sale of this audiobook and ebook will be donated to the National Institute for Reproductive Health to support the reproductive health of girls and women. That's awesome. So, and I will have all of that in the notes, show notes, where you can do that. But let's welcome Susan Lambert.
Oh, Sandra, you're so kind. Thank you so much for having me. It's a thrill. It's a thrill. We're right here on the edge together. Hold my hand.
Totally. Well, in more ways. It's a time. It's a time to be alive, and I'm thrilled to have you on the show. And I am just so thrilled that you took the time to reach out. Let's tell that story.
Yeah, well, what's funny about it is I just went off Facebook. So
I know, I tried to find you to do some more research. I was like, what?
What? I know, but I got a lot of riches from it, at least. So we got right there in that little space.
That edge.
We went through the edge of the crawl space. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, that's Facebook for me is that it's, if I see someone who's connected to somebody, but really if I see someone who kind of captivates me, I think I'm just gonna go say hi and see what's going on with them, yeah, I mean that I feel like that's the only way to be there. Otherwise, I'm just gonna, say, oh no, those people are having better lives than me. Oh no, they look so happy. So
it can be so true on Facebook. Oh my God. Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah. Let's put a mask on and make sure that we only, although I do have some friends that really only post when things are bad. And like if they get a hangnail, there's a picture of that. And anyway, everyone gets to be on social media the way they want.
And
And
I just really loved, I think, I don't remember now exactly, but I think I saw your face and, we have a wonderful musician in common, wonderful human, Ian Herman. And Ian, if you hear this, mwah. Um,
big shout out
but
to you.
Right. But I loved when I saw the title of your podcast, I thought, that's a woman I need to know. So, yeah,
Well,
we,
in the balance, same thing.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think we do some of the same choreography and we swing from the same tree. So,
Indeed, indeed. For another shout out about Ian,
yeah.
The Edge of Ian, a musical directed and arranged my solo show, The Edge of Every Day, that the podcast was created off of. And so that's, it's just
Yeah. And that's the first place I went to YouTube. And I was like, wow, interesting, interesting, beautiful show. So,
oh, well,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
nice. Thank you. Well, okay, so let's dive in with my first question that I like to ask
sure.
all of my guests.
Yeah.
What identity, Susan Lambert, do you lead with?
Wow, that's very interesting. Um, I would say that my identity is a little bit like a prism. I don't really live in one fixed place. Um, uh, but I would say that I lead with an identity that's open person, come talk to me. Whether it was, when I was an actor in the theater for many years or now as a therapist, or just, walking down the street in Provincetown or 12th Street in the West Village. I think that's probably the identity. Um, if you want kind of more of mm, an identity, like what do you do in the world? I think,
No, I
yeah,
love that answer.
yeah, I think I would just say I'm a connector. A lot of people tell me that I'm a connector. So I think that's the thing. I think that's partly uh part of my openness. I'm really curious about people and I also love connecting with people and connecting other people with other people. So or connecting people with a new idea and just being part of that percolating that you can witness in someone, and what
Oh,
a joy that is. Um
totally feeling that. Oh, it's
yeah.
glorious. This is why I love this question
Yeah.
because, some people do go to what they do.
Yeah.
Some people go to a more liminal space,
Mhm.
and like you did. And, this is why I had to have this woman on the show. You inspired the fact that we were going to go and talk about liminality.
Yeah.
And it was based on what you wrote to me.
Well, I almost was going to say when you asked that question, my first like ping in my brain was, "Oh, I'm a little lap dog who jumps on your lap and starts licking your face." So who knows? Could be
Good.
that. Okay. Yeah.
It depends on the day. Depends
Depends
on
on.
what I ask you.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, and as a multi-hyphenate,
Mm.
I feel like I think that, I mean, I can only speak for myself as a fellow multi-hyphenate. That's, another reason why I wanted to have you on. We've had such an interesting, similar journey.
Yeah.
Um, it- when you are a multi-hyphenate, and it's more common in today's world, it's not like you and I are madly unique, but I
Mhm.
think identity it's more easy for us to be fluid because we are moving through what kind of, for lack of a better word, what kind of mask am I putting on? And to some extent, it's true. Hopefully, we don't always put on masks, but let's be real. What world am I going to walk into right now? I'm sure, I like to believe that I'm exactly the same everywhere I go, and I have been told that, but we do change a little bit. When I walk
Mhm.
into spiritual counsel someone, I'm not, you know, I will swear, but but I do have an air of, it's a little different.
No, it's interesting what you're saying because I feel like it's interesting because the two worlds that I live in, well, I live in more than two worlds, but let's say the two sort of big prominent worlds that I live in. Like I live in the
And that's
artistic,
my next question. What worlds do you walk between?
yeah, like I live in the artistic world and I live in the the helping world, the process world, the helping world. I don't feel they're that different. Number one, I don't
I
feel that those two worlds are really very different at all. But of course, there's a different kind of energy in the process, and there's a different goal, and there's a privacy in one where there isn't a privacy in the other, etc. But it's funny. I feel like the thing is, um, I think people know you no matter what context you meet them in. They're going to know you as they know you. And the people that have gotten to know you in other contexts are going to say pretty much the same things about you. And I think, obviously that happens when you know people for a long time, but I think even when you don't know someone for very long, um, especially if you're open and if you're wanting to connect with people, people can grab who you are, and they're going to grab who you are. Like my clients aren't seeing me as some kind of therapist entity that they would not recognize if they saw
out in
me
the
in a
world.
rehearsal. They
Exactly.
would recognize me. They would recognize me, and vice versa. You're really, if you're helping people, or if you're helping people and you're trying to help them be who, I don't know, who they want to be, or be who they really are, or feel what they want to feel, or connect with the world, then it's a good idea if you're
You
trying for
model
that.
it.
Yeah, you're trying for it as well, and like it's the same thing, if you're in a rehearsal or a play or a musical show or a cabaret, you're kind of going through the same stuff. You're going for some kind of discovery, may be about yourself, but it might not be. It might be about people who are totally different from you. It might be about stars, moons, it could be anything. And so I think, if you can be in that process with others, and they're going to be in that process with you, whether they're audience or client, and you have the same thing, you will be known. And it's scary sometimes. It's sometimes a little scary, but that's the whole thing too. Like if you can try for that, then people that you're working with or helping are going to feel like, oh, maybe I will try for that
Mhm.
as
Yeah.
well. And then you try it together. And you learn a lot with each other through the mistakes that you make, through the fears that you have about it, not through mastery or being like amazing or expert at anything. I feel like we learn a little from that, but I think we learn most from all those vulnerable places that we share, which you talk about. Yeah.
I
Hmm.
would so agree with that. It's so lovely and so true.
Yeah.
So, when did you, I mean, I want to dive into it. There's so much I want to unpack with you, Susan Lambert, but we only have an hour. So, I'm
Go.
going to start with, before I get into how you moved into becoming a therapist, for the sake of liminal space, when was it that you caught, like, I had an out of body experience at the age of 6 when I knew that I was in a liminal space. I, of course, didn't use that word back then, but like, have you always known that you loved being in liminal space, or was it, or do you recall the moment you sort of recognized it?
I I don't know what I recognized when I was that little, but I think inching towards middle school, so maybe around 11 or 12, I think I started feeling a kind of, what's the word? Like that I was on sort of a soft trajectory around my daily life, a kind of motion that I started to feel, to create or to ask someone to come over here and do this. Like as a kid, something as small, but it wasn't small to me at the time when I was like in the fourth grade. And we had moved to New Jersey, and I didn't like it. I didn't know anybody, and Christmas came up, and I don't remember how it materialized, but I got these kids to do this little Christmas thing with me, and I got people to give me like those what are those hats that are all puffy with fur, and the little muffs that you put around your hands that they
Oh,
have the polka dots. I think it's kind of a 60s trend. Wasn't the 60s though. I mean, so I don't know. And we got this little tiny organ thing, and then we were just making up Christmas songs because we didn't have any sheet music. And it just, and it, I don't even remember, I don't, was probably very, very edgy. I talk about rough edges. There were rough edges in that one, man. But I don't know. I remember lying in bed and just feeling like, yeah, and then, she'll move over there. And like nothing really probably was happening, but I had the idea that we were all kind of moving. So I think I felt it as motion first. And then as I went along, I think I readily, from maybe 12 or 13 on, felt music just flood my spirit like the best, most perfect ocean you could ever swim in, and you never had to get out, and got on a stage and played characters and felt like you could, open your heart to an auditorium of people, and they were quiet as mice, just wondering what was in there and climbing in with you. And at the same time, I was teaching sixth graders, how to act, I guess, at my school. So I really, honest to God, I really felt about theater from the beginning, like this is a way for me to connect with people one way or the other. I'm going to teach or learn. I loved getting lessons. I'm going to teach. I loved my lessons, teach or learn, or just open up and give this here, take this. So, yeah, so it all felt like a very, yeah, like one of those, like if you were in one of those performances where they have the fabric going up and down across stage, and if you could just get on there and you were just sort of riding on it,
Oh, I love it.
yeah, that's how it felt then.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, interestingly.
Yeah.
I love the motion piece of
Yeah.
that. That's really lovely. Well, and my experience at age 6 was on stage too. I mean, I feel like an actor. Please, I started a company about this, Sacred Stages, where, it's a liminal, very
Right.
liminal space on stage where you are, channeling something.
Yeah.
You are between two worlds.
Right.
And I was 6 years old. I did my first play, and I remember turning and looking backstage and then looking back out into the dark with the spotlight on me, thinking, this feels more real than real life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, and it's yeah, it truly, yeah, the
Yeah.
being on stage is so liminal.
And it feels like a hot spot, and not, if theater people listening to this, I don't mean like getting into the hot spot of the light where it's good for
Right.
the audience to see you, but it feels like a hot spot. It feels like a hot spring, you
Yeah.
know? Like you feel like, oh, I'm in a hot spring now. And I know I don't live in a hot spring, but I am living in a hot spring of emotions, of larger than life, interactions, of stories that people haven't heard yet, or maybe they've heard 100 times, but we're going to tell it this way. And it's very, yeah, it's got such a flow to it, until it doesn't. Sometimes it doesn't have flow. Sometimes, like I say to my clients, very often I'll say, so it's like you're facing the rickety bridge across the ravine, and you got to get to the other side. It's rickety, but you can probably get to the other side. We just don't know how yet. But there are a lot, I've been on a lot of rickety bridges. So in the beginning, it was not rickety. It was amazing. Yeah.
Yes, bridge building is another liminal way of being liminal. Bridge
Yeah.
building, hopefully not rickety, but more
Right.
often, yeah, more often than not, it is.
Yeah.
But so I'm curious to hear your story as to how you stepped into so you went on and had this career. You
Mhm.
you were in New York City. What was the spark
Mm.
when you decided to become a therapist?
Well, I mean, I was teaching singing. I was teaching voice, as well as, when I was working in the theater, and even when I was in conservatory, when I was still in college, I
Still
would teach.
working in the theater.
No, no, but then when I'm
Yes.
talking about full time,
Yeah.
yeah. I would teach voice lessons to the dance majors and all that stuff. So I kept teaching voice all the time that I was, acting and singing, as my like main thing. And to be honest with you, to be very honest, well, I was in therapy, goes without saying. Um, I was in therapy, which meant a lot to me. Um, to be honest, my shift from the theater industry as my, main
Major
thing,
focus. Yeah.
my main focus, to going back to graduate school and, shifting careers, was that, I got burnt. I got burnt in a rough industry. I got kind of burnt. And I felt like, oh, so I get to choose. I get to choose. I know myself a little better now. I am not one of those people, and there are a lot of these people, and I fall down at their feet and kiss their feet, who take tons and tons and tons of knocks and keep going and going and going and just have the joy of all of it despite I wasn't that person. It was hard for me. I got burnt a couple of times. They were not good. But a veteran person would say, "Oh God, that sounds terrible." Yeah, I know somebody went through that. But I thought, I don't really want to live this way. I don't want to live this way. I don't want to wait as long as sometimes you have to wait to get a job in a play. I don't want someone to, take my role from me, or I don't want this stuff. I would like to be in something that feels creative and connecting, but I remember saying to myself, but has a more measurable momentum. I'd like to be able to create my momentum and not be at the mercy. Like when I was talking earlier about being on stage in my early days, my very early days, being in a flood of music. Well, I don't want to be in like the rapids that are gonna drown me. Like I don't want to live like that. So I knew that. I'm like, nah, I'm not, I'm not getting in a dinghy and going in the rapids. So that was really the initial thing that I thought, yeah, I don't know. And then when I thought about it more, I just thought, yeah, this is okay. This is okay. Um, and did school and started to get into the work, and I was loving the work, and then came the mallet, I'll say the mallet rather than the hammer, that said, "Oh no, but wait, I'm not singing and acting all the time. Uh-oh, what did I do? Ah, you know? Um, and you have that realization that like it's the industry that kind of kicked your butt that you don't like. It's not the work. And of course that's correct. So yeah, so as you're hearing, so I was tumbling through lots of liminal spaces of
Yes.
who am I and am I still me? And yes, I'm still me, but where am I? And where am I going to end up? And how am I going to keep a hold of the parts of me that I really love and that make me cry with joy or just with being moved. And then I just figured out how to do both you
Yep.
know not like be a Broadway performer and a therapist, no, but I let go of that, and it took a while. I mean, letting go is its own rough edge. That's a hard process, letting go of where you thought you should be, the should.
Mm,
um but once I was able to let go of that, I started figuring out, yeah, you are still that person. You're just, the context has changed. It's just the
yeah.
context. It's the space. You're in a different space.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I had a line in the original solo piece, The Edge of Every Day, that said, it was the grief piece. This is how I put liminality into my work, which would be a question for you. I crafted the show like a ritual, and it was not linear. It went down and brought up like a ritual. And the grief piece, of course, was the bottom of the ritual.
Mm,
And I had the line, deaths of many kinds, that I've experienced grief and loss and deaths of many kinds, including the death of who I thought I should be,
yeah. Right.
which is one of the most potent liminal spaces ever. And that
Exactly.
whole fluid identity thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so um, there's my little kitty came down
Yeah.
to
And
be with us.
to what you're saying, that's exactly right. And I think that sometimes too, we can all get really hung up on that should, in the sense of, when you're young, maybe when you're young, or whenever you feel that you're in the beginning of something. And for me, it was when I was young, and for you, it was when you were young. You have people surrounding you, and you have a thing in your heart that feels that you're filled with promise. That word, you're filled with
Mm,
the promise of, and the potential, that whole thing. And I'm all for potential. I'm all for that. I'm all for that whole feeling. But I think we can get caught up on it if things change. you
yeah.
know things can change. And, the promise that you felt you were going to fulfill, part of, I think, the grief that can happen when you're making the change is, oh, I'm not gonna fulfill that promise. Or sometimes it could even be, I didn't reach my potential. Why didn't I? And then you could go down those rabbit
Oh
holes.
yeah.
Um, I think I helped myself a little bit with that stuff by moving right into an area that was meaningful to me and that felt like it had um, real potential for connection. But I was really mourning, will I lose that part of myself? Will I lose her? And then when I realized, no, you won't, that was very swimming underwater period until I came up and said, no, here you are, you know, um, and so I really encourage people, not just artists though, people in my practice too, um, DIY, do it
Yeah.
yourself,
Yeah.
whatever you want to
Totally.
do, and you can always do it yourself. Like if you want to do it in a big industry, if you want to do it with six other people, if you want to do it down the block, if you want to do this, um, great. But you can also
Create your joy. Indeed.
do you yourself, DIY, and that's really a very real thing if you can find your way to it. And it's it can be a rough ride.
It can and for all of the reasons, that you were just talking about, the shoulds, but, I was called to ministry because I just had to step
Mhm.
out of the proverbial closet as a spiritual to the things that I was able to know
Mhm.
and walk with. It just became unbearable to not sink into that journey. And that's quite literally, it was like I was life was fine, but I had
Mhm.
to do that. And it became more interesting to me than the business. Um, but yeah, but everything takes its attention, and you can't have. I wasn't even interested in having the same flourishing career once I
Yeah.
went to seminary. I I never felt like I lost that part of her, but of myself. But it did take, to your point, it did take some navigating to really understand how to weave those two together, which of course don't feel separate at all to me as well.
Right.
So it was creating Sacred Stages, my company, and then Edge of Every Day, that was based all of my spiritual concepts and crafted like a ritual, that where I really felt that I was stepping into my true path as a performer slash spiritual leader. And
Yeah. Yeah.
it just really, and it affected, uh, uh, from that day forward, all of my performing. There was
Absolutely.
nothing as great as speaking these concepts. And I guess that's really what you do, what I do, what we help people to do is to tell their story in authentic ways, find their voice in
Yeah.
authentic, because I had to find mine. You had to find yours. And all
Yeah.
were like pieces of the tapestry.
Absolutely. And just one small part of that's kind of funny for performers to hear is that I did my best work once I was out of the industry. Um Not because I'm not bashing the industry, but for me it was because I needed to learn that we have different dreams at different moments of our lives. To imagine that we have one big dream and that's it is limiting. That's just limiting. But we've kind of been taught through like books and movies and like culture and stuff that you have a big dream and you find it or you don't. And I think that's changed. I think recent literature and recent movies, it's more subtle and there's more going on. But that was kind of the original thing. And I think that once you realize, yeah, I did have a dream when I was 11. I don't know, somebody famous came to my school and they asked the audience, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I popped up and said, I'm going to be an actress, a Broadway actress or something. And and so later, you realize, oh, I don't, yeah, I don't care if I'm on Broadway. That doesn't mean that much to me. It's cool. I love to go. If it's a great show, no worries. But I don't have to do it. That's actually not my dream now. My dreams are different, you know. Like Lizzie in 110 in the Shade, simple little things. So she had simple little dreams, like just coming home at night and cuddling with her husband. And so at another point in life, you have another dream. Your dreams can change, and that's all good. That's all good. It's your spirit speaking to you as you grow and as you make changes. The changes are scary for a little bit, and then you get more used to them, and then you understand them, or whatever your process is. And then you bloom from them.
Oh, I love that. I love that. So true. They do
Yeah.
absolutely change. So how do you feel? You mentioned it in that very first contact that your sense of the liminal space has really shown up in your work, in your art, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, that maybe this is a great seg into your book, The Beautiful Wild Edge of the Heart. I mean, I rest assured it shows up in a million ways. How does liminality, the liminal space show up in your work?
Um, I would say that, I did many cabaret shows when I was in New York. And now we call them solo shows. I don't know what we call them. But I have always been interested in the what if, or the like one piece that I did in a show that I did called Men and Women. I did a Kurt Cobain song a cappella. I forget the title. All Apologies. And I did it a cappella, and the story behind it was that it was a suburban wife who fell in love with the girl who's the cashier at the Kmart. And she's sitting at the kitchen table telling her husband, like, I'm sorry, but this is part of who I am. I gotta go there. So I'm always interested in kind of what if this happened, or what if you were in this place and you felt
Yeah.
like you kind of were feeling like you wanted to go over there, or what if what if you feel like you're sometimes in this sense of who you are, but there's another part of you that you don't give enough voice to. And then what if another piece that I started writing that I didn't finish, was a musical, and we started it out. It was a teenage girl, and I felt like the first part of it should be film, where she's done a suicide attempt because of a creepy teacher, and it's the film. But then the whole play, she's on a riser with an angel, and she's literally in the in-between space, probably for 5 minutes, but it's a whole play. And so that interests me too, like that beautiful
Mm.
moment in Contact. You remember that movie with Jodie Foster, when she goes in the thing and they all say, yeah, it didn't work. She was only gone for a minute, but she went to Vega and met her dad. So I'm getting goosebumps. I love that scene. But yeah, if anybody hasn't seen that scene, just Google it, Contact, the scene in Vega. Um, but, but I love the notion of, time isn't necessarily the measure you think it is. It could be your time, you could be living something in 3 minutes that people just didn't even notice it went by, or those ways that you might change that maybe you don't notice, but you feel it first, then you know what it is, or you never know what it is. All of that, what if, I really like that. And I like that in the work. And I really I like to do things like I like to do this song like a man and that one like a kid and that kind of stuff. I think it shows up in that way in my work
I
anyway, in
love
my
it.
work. Yeah.
I can feel how that serves your clients as
Yeah.
well. That mindset is really helps them to begin to think outside of the box in their own healing, in their own
Yeah.
journey to know themselves.
I think so, because I think that like, don't get me wrong, I love the internet. I think it's amazing. I think it's amazing. One of the things about today's world, and especially people like in their 20s and 30s, um, that we're so inundated with information and people giving us answers, quote unquote, on whatever it is, TikTok. I've never been on TikTok, but I hear a lot people saying, well, the woman on TikTok said, and Facebook and Instagram and all that kind of stuff. I think I think one thing that's a little bit of a challenge, or could be like a wall, or like a wall of water sometimes, is that we're getting a little bit too much answery kind of information, rather than just be comfortable, like the typical therapist thing. And it's true, true, true in therapy. They say, tolerate your feelings, or they say sit with your feelings. And sometimes I'll say to a client, and I mean it, okay, this is going to sound therapist-y, because it is kind of therapist-y, when you say, you got to tolerate the feelings. But it's true. Like, find a way to just, yeah, to just hang out around that rickety bridge, or hang out in that space that you're not so sure about, that someone's going to say to you, you have an answer to. But answers are not necessarily, they're not bad, but they're not necessarily going to open you to where you're going to grow next, or how you're going to expand, or how you're going to shore up. You may not be expanding. You might be needing to shore up, or to cozy in, or to reach out, or just to know yourself, or to have a kinder inner word for yourself. And you're not going to find it if you're thinking, people often will say to me, like, well, how can I fix that? Or what is the answer for that? And I say, well, we don't fix people. I don't think we need to fix people. And I really believe that, people are people. We don't have to fix anybody. But that's a thing that I feel like, with clients, is really important. And once people get the hang of it, they're okay, because we're doing it together.
Yeah.
It's not
Well, and they
like,
realize it's not, once they try it, they realize it's not so scary,
yeah.
or a little less scary.
I'm sure
And
you find that too, because
oh, totally.
you're there with.
Yeah. Well, and I love what you said about answers. They don't necessarily open the doors. It's the questions. I mean,
Yes.
if you're really going to sit with, like, there's no, a question is going to just make another question, and you're just going to keep expanding.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the power of curiosity, like another thing that I try to do in the therapeutic work is, like, when people are, whatever, they're working on a problem or an issue, I'll say, and they'll say, so what can I do, till next time? I'll say, you know what? Just notice it. Just notice it. If you notice it and you're a little curious, just say, there it is again. Wow. Okay. Like, just notice it and be curious. And I don't say that to be like nice. I say it because that's the way to let it breathe a little, so that you can actually feel it. Because if we don't feel it, we're going to stay in our heads. And being in our heads is like, we have to be in our heads a little bit sometimes, but living in our heads is just not the fun, beautiful place to be. So if you can, just like notice it and go, huh, and be curious. Curiosity is going to take you so far. It's like watching bunnies, or dogs with bunnies.
Well, you've just described it, a delicious liminal space.
Yeah.
It's allowing ourselves this old way of who I was. I know I'm moving out of it, and who is going to show up. I'm not quite there yet,
Yeah.
but just the way my brain works, I just popped into my head that the edge of every day was
Yeah.
created during COVID, a massive global liminal
Well,
space.
yeah, man. Yeah. That's
So,
right.
yeah. Yeah.
Right. And that's like, and I really think that we all know that we just lived through a plague, but I don't know if we really know it. I don't think we
I'm
really
so with
know
you.
it.
Yeah. Like, I
I
know.
don't know that I really know it. I notice little things like, oh, I don't really bother to put on earrings much. I used to always have earrings on, or like I used to have 10 rings on my fingers. I don't do that anymore. Or, um, you know, uh, I'm in my PJs because I'm working at home. I'm not putting clothes on every day. And I thought, oh, that's COVID, because you never left your house. Like for several months, you were like in your yard or the house, and like
And
washing an
that was it. Yeah.
basement. And so just now I'm kind of noticing, oh yeah, I'm still in a kind of in between space, even though I feel like, or even though it looks like everything's all, and we're not even talking about fascism, but like, we're just talking about plague now, but everything looks like we're back out in the world, but I
Yeah.
don't know if I'm all the way back out in the world, really, in little ways. Uh,
Yeah.
I
I'm
think I'm,
I'm with you, but yeah, it is. fascism. We are in a liminal, like things are
Uh-oh.
breaking down pretty rapidly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what is to come is still unknown.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's a
Yeah.
podcast episode extraordinaire,
Yeah.
a separate podcast to talk about
But
that. I want to,
it really speaks to what you're doing though. It really speaks to, and I do encourage my clients in my own way, but you're the, the real deal. It really speaks to spiritual work. We must try to embrace spiritual work now. It's the only
it's
way.
the only way to get back. It's
The
the
only way.
only, we have gone so far astray.
Yeah.
And the tendrils of that are so far reaching.
So far reaching. So it's really, really, really deep and important work that you're doing. And I really appreciate it.
Hmm. Thank you, my friend. That's very
Yeah.
kind of you.
Yeah.
Well, right back at you in the
Yeah.
balance and all the work you're doing. And this, I just purchased the Wild Edge of the Heart. I love that title. So talk to us about this. Tell us all
Yeah.
about this, the spark for
So,
this, and
yeah. So, so I have a wonderful friend, Walker Vreeland, who's a voiceover artist. He's like just a genius. And I've known him for many, many years. And I don't even remember how we started the podcast. I don't even remember, to be honest. I don't remember. We just started the podcast. And he, I mean, I chose the guests, like I thought of the questions and all that, but he kind of coached me to learn because he was a radio host for years out in the Hamptons. And uh, he would help me on little things to be, a good podcast, the hosting and stuff. And he also edited and did all the sound work and picked music for it. And so we had a great collaboration for the podcast. He's just so wonderful. And he produces lots of podcasts now and audiobooks. In fact, he produced Corona City, Voices from the Epicenter, which was an audiobook that won the best audiobook of the year during COVID. And anyway, so we did the podcast together, and then I said, I'm kind of at the end of what I'm doing with the podcast, and then I met lots and lots of poets in my research and in episodes that I wanted to do and people I wanted to interview, and then
hmm,
became friends with some of them. And one of them, Alexis Rowan Fancher, who I love. I love all of them. Um, we still haven't done it because COVID hit, but we were going to do a film of three of her poems I wanted to kind of string together and make a film. Anyway, so in COVID, maybe during COVID or at the end of COVID, yeah, maybe at the end of COVID, I said, what if we did an audiobook of a bunch of poets and we give all the money to a charity? And he said, "Oh my God, that would be amazing." And so, and I ruminated a little bit about who to give the money to, and I asked a couple of friends of mine, and a friend of mine had a connection to the NIRH because I wanted to give it to for women's rights. Um, and yeah, and then I asked all the poets that I knew, and a couple of them knew poets that I didn't know, but they said, "Look, she's great, do it with her." And they all just generously said, "Yep, pick two poems you want." It was amazing. They were so generous. And I worked on the poetry myself a lot. And then I kid you not, I drove down from Cape Cod because I was here then to Philadelphia where Walker was living, and we did the whole book in one afternoon. Practically every poem was one take because we just
hmm,
had such a great flow, and I really
collaboration.
a lot, and it was just we were in the zone. And I'm proud of it. I'm proud of it. And the poets are stunning. I mean, they're badass, they're beautiful, they're honest, they're funny.
All
They're
women.
all women,
Mhm.
and they're diverse. And so yeah, we hooked up with the NIRH, and then the NIRH had a terrible tragedy. The president of the NIRH suddenly passed away, and she was, in her prime, and that was a terrible blow for them. So there was upheaval, and then Kamala and Tim took the news cycle. So I thought, I'm not going to go crazy pitching the book where all these places I was going to pitch it, because those people are going to be trying to get Harris and Waltz into office. And then you descend into fascism. So Um, so now, wow. So
Yeah.
now, um, I mean, we've sold the book, but I want to sell it on a bigger scale. But now I'm sort of again changing my vision. My vision is different now, and my vision is I've got to go very grassroots with how we're going to pitch it and sell it now, because big organizations, first of all, have to put a lot of money into things that are going to take take this coup down, but also. Um, we want to be careful about trying to funnel money to something that could then get shut down and then the money gets into their hands. So I don't want my money anywhere near them. So I'm going, I'm going more in a grassroots direction. I'm fine with that, putting it in the hands of people or local organizations or driving to that state and giving it to those people and that Planned Parenthood, et cetera. So that's how we're doing it. And but I really believe in it, and it was a great collaboration. Everybody was so great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I bought it. I can't wait to listen to it.
Thanks. Thank
Yeah,
you.
of
Yeah.
course. Of
Yeah.
course. Um, so, and of course, it popped into my mind while you were talking, getting it into the hands. Salon.
Yeah.
You have a long tradition of doing salons, and this
I
is yet one more thing that Susan and I have in common is
yeah.
salon renaissance. So, and I've invited her to come to mine, the Plum in the Catskill Mountains, the Plum at Traver Hollow House, folks, to do her show. We're working on possible dates with Ian Herman, said mutual friend. So talk to me about Salon. Tell us about the show and your relationship with Salon now and how you're seeing it, how it might help in the times in which we find ourselves.
Yeah. Well, I really again going on that kind of DIY thing, but also I love the salon concept because I feel it's about bringing people together, some of whom know each other, some of whom do not know each other, in a way that's well, when I was doing it in New York, that's affordable, because going
Yeah.
to cat. So one of the things I had a salon series for a year in New York that we did at City Winery in a slot that they would never have any of the big performance. So I said, just have us. We'll be there for an hour. You don't make any money there anyway, and that was fine. And then a friend of mine, I had a big apartment in Astoria, and my living room was gigantic. And then one night I was there with girlfriends. She said, girl, you should just do it here in this living room. And I said, my God, you're totally right. So it changed to Salon Astoria and it was in my living room. I got back jacks and we had 50 people in there easily.
Fabulous.
We did poetry readings, people sang, did cabaret shows, um, Christmas shows, everything. And the idea was if you can donate $10, great. If you can't, okay, bring your own wine. We'll cork it and put it in a plastic cup. And what I really loved about it is that thing about people, sitting on my floor in backjacks, um, getting to know each other and
Yeah.
being just really willing to sit in someone's living room and see this woman do a beautiful program and feel really chill about it, have like a really homey, their shoes are off, they're sitting around, it feels friendly and warm. And you love that idea of the old-fashioned salons, but now I feel really the same way about it now. I feel like a friend of mine and I are going to get a salon going here on Cape Cod because I have a
Oh,
I have a
lovely.
backyard. I did the audiobook launch party in my backyard. It worked well. And I thought, because I have a couple of decks and it's not fancy. It's kind of a wild, like bunnies are living all over the place. But um, but
And we
you could
need community so badly now.
you do,
We
and you could do
absolutely.
anything in my backyard. You could do anything there. And he lives in P-Town. He has a big house, so we're gonna kind of brainstorm that. And I think it's really important because I also think that everybody kind of huddles together in small groups. That's in a lot of different places, and I think that's good. But I think that, like you say, getting outside that box and realizing I have my little group that I huddle with. And then I have these other people. And so I really can have a sense of belonging. Even if I'm not in that group over there, I don't know, the way I am with these two people, I am in that group right now. We're all here together. So I do belong. We do belong. We belong together. Ricky Lee
Yeah.
Jones, belong together. And that's the idea. We belong together and we really belong together now because we must help each other. We must learn to help each other now if we didn't already have an idea. And sometimes helping can be, I don't know, giving someone a sandwich or hiding them in your attic. I don't know. But helping can also be just come over in my backyard and we're going to sing some songs. Just relax and forget about it all for an hour, you know. It can be anything.
I'm going to
So I
listen to your poetry. I'm going to listen to you. All going to see each other and
yeah,
hold each other. Yeah.
yes. Yes. I just think it's really that's the way. That's what we can do, you know.
And I'm going to do a series in mine. I've been thinking about a regular series for women. Men are allowed, but it's for women. It will be very structured for women. Well, structured, but it will involve some ritual and some,
Cool.
talk and maybe a bit of work with a book, but something that really engages people spiritually and feels like a church experience, but reconnects them with nature, etc.
That's
And
wonderful.
getting back to the basics, man, and
Yeah.
building, but first and foremost, community, helping
Yeah.
each other and building community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And artists through time, artists have artists can bring some things to life that can also kind of um, give a glow to that feeling of community too, give a little glow. It's like stepping into warm water that maybe you haven't stepped into before. And that's also wonderful about artists making community. Um, it's not just for other artists, it's for anybody, anybody come and show up. And like you say, it could be like reading a book together. It could be anything. Yeah.
Just share
So
your heart with me. Just share
yeah,
your heart and passion with me, and
yeah,
your cracks and your
yeah.
imperfections, all the things.
Yeah, yeah. We had some
Mm.
people over the other night for dinner, and it was one of those things where it's not enough people that people go off and have small conversations, but not few enough that it's like eight people kind of in a
Yeah.
football huddle now in the living room. So it's a little, whoa, we're all right here. Okay. And and a conversation came up, but we're not going to go all into this because we're almost wrapping up. But a conversation happened um that was, I won't even really go into the specifics, but that was a little difficult, a social issue that was a little difficult. And a couple of people said, this is going to sound a little unpopular, and they talked about it. And well, I will say what it was about. It was about trans, the trans people and trans kids, and a couple of people had some reservations. And one of the couples in the room are good friends of mine, and they have a trans kid. So it was, for a minute, it was a little tense for a minute, not even a minute, 30 seconds. And and then my friend said, "Yeah, well, I hear that because I have a trans kid." And and everybody was so I say this because I really want whoever's listening to this not to think that Sandra and I are like kumbaya, like everyone's on the same page and that's we're all going to be in a salon where we all are loving on everything everybody else says, because that's just not the way it goes. Like she said at the
Yeah.
beginning, it's dark and it's open and it's dark, it's open and it's shut, it's dark and it's not, it's rough and it's smooth. And this group of people navigated this so beautifully. And at one point, like I looked at this woman and I just said, "Hey, I can disagree with you, but this place here is safe and we're here to discuss all the things that are going on and it's all good." And everybody was just in that spirit. And then when I sent a thank you email out, they were all thanking each other for having that really meaningful discussion. And one guy sent an article and a John Oliver episode. So that was to me like the perfect example of, there was a little bit of like, I'm not with this thing. Well, I am or whatever, but it was not an argument and it was not contentious and it was not aggressive. It was really people wanting to hear from other people and understanding the naturalness of I'm not always going to agree with you and that's okay. And we're still here having this time together. Can you pass the wine? You know,
Yeah.
it was so meaningful. I was really sort of
Hmm.
proud of all my guests, you know. I was like,
Yeah.
you guys rock. Yeah.
Oh, fabulous. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. That's a glorious story. And that's the edge of every day. There,
Yeah.
hello, we want to have these, we want to
Hello.
face the tension of paradox. We want to have these courageous conversations.
Yeah.
Um, we don't always have to agree on something, but, unless, of course, it's my personal rights, and then that's problematic. If we're
Well, there's that other kind of sphere, which we're not going to get into today, but
next time, when she comes back, folks, we'll get back on that track.
yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
so let's talk about where people can find you. Susan-Lambert.com.
Yes, which is off, which is being re overhauled. So is that what you say? Overhauled. So it's going to be back on in like a week. And also Susan, was it what is it? SusanCreates.net, which is out there somewhere. Yeah, because I'm not on Facebook. I'm on Blue Sky, but I haven't really figured out what you do on Blue Sky. I keep saying, "Hi guys, is this right? Can I put a picture here?" So I don't even. I'm on there, but I'm not saying much because I'm just trying to figure it out. So, yeah, if you Google my name, you'll probably see more about me as a therapist. Although you might see stuff about recent productions I've done. I really have no idea. I never look for myself. Um,
Where
but
they
you
can
can
find,
find me. You'll
yeah,
find me.
and your book. It's
Yeah.
it's wild,
Wild Edge of the Heart, wildedgeheart.com, or just go to
wild
Amazon, Wild
edge.
Edge of the
Okay.
Heart, and you'll see my name there.
Don't
But
go
yeah,
to Amazon.
I
Go
know.
to a bookstore.
Totally. Well, I've given Amazon up, but I couldn't give it up because the book is for the book, but I don't go there anymore. But it's also Barnes and Noble,
Mhm.
Spotify. Are Spotify bad guys? I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know
I don't
that either.
so Barnes and Noble I think is okay. And but yeah, if you just Google my name, if you really want to talk to me or you need anything or you want to hear about a group, I'm going to do a free support group in September for whatever's going on. And if you Google me, you'll see some information how to connect with me. You'll see something.
Mm.
Sorry, I'm not.
You'll say something.
You'll
Well,
see.
and I'll have all of these in the show notes, folks. So,
Yeah,
and I'll put all of the websites and all of the
yeah.
things, and you will be able to locate this glorious woman. Thank you
Oh,
so much for
thank
being a
you.
guest on the Edge of Every Day.
My goodness, thank you so much. It's an honor and a pleasure. Just a pleasure. Hmm.
Truly. Well, I have a Mary Oliver line to close us out.
Mhm.
Is there anything else you want or need to plug or share with our audience before we sign off?
Nope, Mary Oliver's my favorite. Shoot.
Love that. Keep some room in your heart for the unimaginable. Keep some room in your heart for the unimaginable. That is the most glorious liminal space. Thank you so much for being a guest. And to my listeners, I say thank you for spending this time with us. Remember, you are always at the edge of the miraculous. Till we speak again, take good care.
Pressing down on you, no man has fought.